Think so, huh?
No,
So I guess I better not write much because you only got one piece of paper left. I got a stack of sticky notes for you. All right, we are talking about feathering now, feathering propellers.
You're on in the event of an engine failure.
we're on B.
Really? That's where I left off?
No.
No?
Yeah, no, B.
B. B, which is Macaulay. Okay, I see where I'm going with it. Okay, so the basic propeller, so Macaulay. Propeller is really not any different than the other propellers we're seeing. So it is backwards. So, or they're correct and the single engine is backwards. I don't care how you look at it. Similar to non-feathering.
We did a non-feathering before. Now we're doing feathering.
Now we're in the feathering system. You gonna be okay?
Yeah,
This is technically a B right here.
Can't see red.
That's why I changed it to black. Similar to non-feathering model, but uses counterweights. Uses counterweights and spring pressure to increase blade angle. And the single engine did what to increase blade angle?
Oil pressure.
Oil pressure. So now we're not using oil pressure to do that. We're using counterweights and spring to increase the blade angle and oil pressure to decrease. Blade angle. Visually, they're different. It has a longer piston to accommodate longer blade travel. So the prop, again, prop is counterweighted. And spring-loaded to feather if oil pressure is lost. Which is great. But what happens when we shut down the engine? What's the oil pressure do?
Lost.
Yep. And there's a big spring in there. So every time you shut down the engine, it's got a
Feather.
feather. But that means that the starter then has to fight this paddle trying to go through, and that would not be good. So we can't have that. So to prevent feathering, during shutdown, a centrifugal latch is used. Why? This prevents.
Can you explain how that centrifugal latch works again?
No.
Okay.
Let me see.
I remember we went over this yesterday, but it kind of...
Maybe it's in my notes, but yeah, I'll do it. I'll write these two things.
Okay.
This prevents excessive starter loads.
Even just if you use your hands. Hand signals. Yeah.
Under about 900 RPM, a latch engages. That prevents the propeller. That prevents the prop from feathering. All right, there's several different types of feathering locks. Let me see if I have a picture of any of them. I don't think I do. Well, that wasn't helpful. Let's see. Don't think I do. That would be negative. Okay. So I will explain. There are several different types. Unfortunately, we only have one example in the hangar.
Oil operated.
And it is oil operated, which is antiquated, no longer used. So I'm going to let you guys figure out how to do it, because you should be figuring out how things work. And that's, I keep saying, that is my goal for you, to take something apart, like the governor that you guys were taking apart. I always feel bad when you come, not for me, for you, when you come up to me and you say, I don't know how this works. Where's the manual? Right? At this stage of the game, I know everybody in here has the capability of taking things apart and looking at it going, huh, I know what it is. How did they make it do that? What's it doing? And that's what you should be doing. That's how you get this memory, so that when you go to the DME, you're like, are you kidding me? Yeah, counterweight's doing this and that. I can picture it all in my head right now. So we have one model of the Macaulay that has an oil operated latch system, oil/centrifugal. Some of the Hartzels we have more of a centrifugal pin. So the most simplistic version would be that, and that is that the blade hub rotates this way, right? Okay, so if this is where we want it, and on the blade hub you can put a collar with a hole in it, and you can put a spring-loaded pin. So the spring-loaded pin is going to drive into the hub when the blade is like this, right? And as you start the engine and it starts going around, the centrifugal force is going to lift that pin up against the spring, allowing the prop to move. And then when you slow down, that's going to go in. Now, if the blade is at high angle, it won't catch. That's a good thing, because if you're flying and you have an engine problem, chances are you weren't at low pitch, you were at a cruise pitch or a higher pitch, cruising. So you don't want this, things start to go bad, the engine starts losing power, slowing down. Well, the last thing you want is of course governor's going to try and bring it in, but in theory, before it gets to that point, the pin catches, you would catch that, go, okay, we're going to go to feather. So to go to feather, you're just going to grab it, go all the way to the low RPM, and then usually there's a little indent, a detent, some sort of gate, something, so you don't inadvertently do it, but you'll pull it all the way and go to feather. Sometimes you lift up, sometimes you're just way back there. Then it goes to feather, and then the locks don't work. But it's always just nowadays, just some sort of function of centrifugal force. Does that help?
So even if it's spinning, if the prop goes too far forward, would it
Flat.
catch?
It will, but only if at low RPM. Only at low RPM.
So, okay. So only at about 900 RPM.
Yeah,
Okay.
just pretty stinking low if you're
Yeah.
flying.
Okay.
I don't even think you can get it that low flying without
It's scary.
the windmilling effect. Is just going to keep it higher, wouldn't you say?
You'd stall first.
Yeah, so I was thinking the aircraft, so it's not a risk. And for maintenance needs, if you want to feather it on the ground, usually the way I would do it is I would just have my hand on the throttle and hand on the prop, and I'd pull the prop back to feather, and as it starts to feather, you can hear it, just start pulling back the throttle, shut down. Because you don't want to leave the throttle open and let it try and shut the engine down with the prop. That's bad. Let's see. Oh, got this. Governor. Remember that thing?
It's a thing that exists.
That's the thing that exists. So to feather the governor, the governor incorporates a lift rod. Incorporates a lift rod. Connected to the speeder rack. the lift rod mechanically grabs onto the pilot valve and moves it up into the feathering position. So the lift, I really thought I had a picture of that, but apparently I don't.
You did, I saw it.
Let me see.
It's that right there.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
So spindle, lift rod, right in there. So it just comes in, lifts it up, grabs a speeder rack, pulls the whole thing up, realigns the pilot valve, drain off all of the oil, let centrifugal force, spring pressure, and or air pressure do its job, and there you go. What is this? 2A. So the lift rod mechanically lifts the pilot valve, when cockpit control is moved to the feather position. All right, to unfeather. Well, you got to have a way to make it not feather. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Way number one is you've now put the prop in feather. Its blades are out. It's completely stopped. Look at it. Maybe you decide maybe the engine's okay now. Got better. Healed itself. And so you need to restart it. If you don't have any system for doing that, all you're going to do is take the blue knob, bring it out of feather, and hit the start button. And it just has to fight the air. And as the starter starts going, so is the crankshaft, so is the governor, so everything starts working, right? And so it takes oil pressure to bring it flat. So it'll start, the engine will try and start, it'll kind of get going. And at the same time, remember the starter is turning on the components, so it's going to start putting oil pressure up in there, and it's going to start to come out of feather. Now, as soon as it starts to come out of feather, and it catches the wind, then it's going to air start on its own, and then you're off and running. Yeah. Okay.
Painfully slow.
What's that?
But it's painfully slow.
I bet it is. I've never done it in the air, but I've done it on the ground, and it's like, whoo, man. All right. Way number two is with an accumulator. And so an accumulator, something that you guys are going to look a lot at. These are just two examples of an accumulator. So we can look at the top one first. And it looks like a toilet ball. And we have this rubber diaphragm in here. And you can see on one side is air and the other side is oil with an air valve, which means you charge this with a bunch of air. And so, let's say there's 100 PSI in here, whatever it's supposed to be. And as oil fills this up, it will compress that air, leaving this oil under, say if we had 100 pounds here, 100 pounds of oil pressure, right? And so the way that works is this is open usually to the governor. So the governor is charging this up. And then when you go into feather, it will shut off a valve, block the oil in here under pressure, lift up the lift valve, or lifts the pilot valve, blocks off the oil going into this because it's all kind of in the same system. And then that keeps it charged. The prop goes to feather because of oil, because of centrifugal twisting force, because of spring pressure, because of air charge in the prop, and now it's feathered. Now when you want to unfeather, and you go, yeah, I thought this one had it. Sometimes I'll even show the passage where it goes, to the accumulator. And so then when you go into the, I don't want it feathered anymore, and you push forward out of the feather, it opens the gate that had, this is two governor, I didn't know. It opens the gate that blocked this off. This goes to the governor. The governor sends it right now because the pilot valve is showing that we're in an underspeed condition. And I'm going to screw that one up. So it's thinking it's not spinning, so it's just going to be. But you're going to realign the valve in here, and then the oil goes right through here to the propeller and brings it back in. That's ball type. And they also have it's the same thing, it's just kind of flat. So you could actually have a piston that moves back and forth in there. So put the air on one side and a piston that'll move, or a spring or something. You can even use a spring. Makes sense, I hope. So let's see. Let's finish this. To unfeather, the system may use an accumulator. May use an accumulator. An accumulator stores engine oil under pressure. An accumulator stores engine oil under pressure. Stores engine oil under pressure. Yeah, that works for me. Maybe air pressure. Or spring pressure. Especially if it's air pressure, you gotta check your air pressure at annuals. And also, we often check the accumulator action. We'll go ahead and feather the prop, and then test the accumulator, bring it out of feather. Because you don't necessarily have to have the engine running at that point. It'll do it on its own. Yeah.
The guy on the Hartzell videos said every 100 hours or month.
Okay, that wasn't an accumulator. That's the Hartzell prop that we haven't looked at yet, where it has the Schrader valve on the front, underneath
Yeah.
the front of it. That's not an accumulator.
Okay.
That's like spring pressure and centrifugal twisting force assist.
It's one of the
Okay.
fixed forces.
Okay.
It's one of the fixed forces. Thank you. That's the word it would have been much better to say. Let's see. Cumulative air pressure or spring loaded. Got that. B, when the control is placed out of feather, when prop control is placed out of feather, comma, a ball valve in the governor will release oil pressure to the prop.
From the accumulator.
Yep, to the prop to unfeather.
I know I was in a little potty break, but is it just like located?
Oh, so you want me to repeat everything because you took a independent break?
No, I didn't say that.
No.
That's what you meant.
Sit that nice.
Anyway,
I'm trying to actually say it.
Is it? I'm trying to think of like the two valves that we were thinking of, where one went to the prop and one drained off, and the pilot valve moved to. Is it in line with those? It's
Yes.
part of that little
yes,
system.
part of that system.
Okay.
What do I need to say? Systems without an accumulator they just started in feather. So systems without an accumulator must be started in feather position. As the engine is rotated, governor pressure will start to unfeather the prop. Prop will begin to windmill, helping the starter as pressure and the governor as governor pressure increases. Prop will move to low pitch. Oh, that's what we got.
That wasn't really tough. I couldn't have started better.
Is that just because you don't have a good imagination, or is it?
Yeah,
It's what it sounds like. It's more of an imagination issue.
something not wrong, not right in my.
Imagine.
You tried mushrooms or anything? I hear that.
Not gonna answer that.
Would have been funny if you would have said, so, you mean today? This week? Oh, look. I have a picture.
Oh.
Maybe I can make it smaller. There, can you see that? Accumulator.
Smaller
Turn
than
the lights
it
off.
Check valve. All right, so you got a check valve. It comes through, little check valve, which means it goes one way. Comes in, charges up the accumulator during normal flight, just in case we need it. All right. I don't know what the hell the big ass plate is. Oh, I know.
It's to push
So
down on the-
yeah, so we go into feather without the accumulator action, right? We pull the levers all the way back, cutting off the oil pressure from the governor. Prop goes into feather because of it's fixed. It's fixed forces. Child. It's like being at home sometimes. I say, 10-year-old.
Older.
I'm not sure. Love you anyway, though. All right, so goes into feather, and they want to unfeather it. We rotate it around. This comes over, pushes down on the little ball, releases it. This comes out through, goes to the propeller, and there we are, off to the races. What?
You said off to the races like computer view this Saturday.
I know. I was thinking about for some reason on the way they talk about like you're into that, huh?
Every once in a while.
All right.
Is it this Saturday?
It's this weekend. Yeah, it's Saturday.
All right. Where'd we leave off?
Heart and soul.
Well, I guess I just kind of put them all together here. I don't know. I didn't really. No. Macaulay. There we go. Macaulay feathering is where it kind of left off. Counterweights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Moves prop to low pitch.
Oil.
Yes.
Moves prop to high pitch.
Counterweight
Counterweight
springs.
spring pressure. All right. Underspeed. Now underspeed oil.
Same with the hammer.
Underspeed.
Decrease.
Oil to prop to decrease pitch. Overspeed. Drain oil to increase pitch. All right. That brings me to. I don't know. I guess I just skipped right over the Hartzell pictures. Hartzell. What can we say about that? Hartzell.
Is this a less? basic?
Man, I don't know. It's the same thing. We really could just come up here. We could say Macaulay / Hartzell. There's really not going to be a whole lot of difference. What can I say? There's a little bit, so I guess I could write it. So Hartzell, I'll just write some other notes. Hartzell,
Same thing.
same thing.
But different.
Okay, we could do that. Same as Macaulay. Same as Macaulay. But may use air pressure to assist CTF. Let's see. Steel hub has external feathering latches.
Yeah.
Compact.
That's grease.
All right, so speaking of air pressure, all right, so we got that. Let's talk about operations, obviously the same. So maintenance. Maintenance. Let's talk about the air pressure. How often is that check there, Tobias?
Every 100 hours or month, whichever comes first.
Yep, and I know aircraft owners. They have it in their iPhone. Little alarm go off. Hey, I got to go down to the airport and check my air pressure. It's been a month. Some props will need, because you ask them how often you check the air pressure in your prop, and they're going to say air pressure. Air pressure.
Yeah, I've never heard of them.
Yeah. Some props will need the air charge checked. Will need the air charge checked. Air pressure is about 150, so about 150 psi. Good, I wrote that. Follow the chart. There's a chart on the right where you put the air charge in, and it tells you what temperature, at what temperature you're at, how much air pressure should be in the propeller. So if pressure is too low, what's going to happen?
You're going to get too much PSI in
Yes, correct. If the air pressure is too low, you'll get too much PSI.
there. Oh, air pressure, sorry. Sorry.
Get too much oil pressure?
It's a Friday.
If air pressure,
You don't have enough fixed force.
you don't have enough fixed force, so what would that lead a problem to?
Not enough assistance.
Can't go to feather.
Yeah, not enough assistance. Assistance to do what?
Feather.
Okay, thank you.
Towards feather, yeah.
All right, may not feather. May not feather. I have also may surge or overspeed. Why would it overspeed?
Because it's too low of an angle.
Yeah, too low of an angle. Air charge isn't bringing it over. So surging is kind of a looking for its right spot.
It's like would that be like bootstrapping kind of? Like where it
Nope.
overspeeds and continues to overspeed?
No, it's just everything is behind.
Okay.
So by the time it starts moving one way, it's just finally starts moving to low pitch, and then it's like, whoa, now we need to speed up a little bit, but it can't. So it, then it starts to speed up. It goes too far that way. So if air pressure is too high, what do you think?
It's gonna warm feather when there's
What's that mean?
It's
During
gonna
normal
be too
operation,
high of
it's-
a blading.
Yeah.
Low blading.
You don't have enough oil pressure to counteract and bring it to low
It'd be
pitch.
too high
So
of
it
a
will. Oops,
It
may.
will try and go to feather.
It would try and go to
It
feather.
tries to go to high blading.
May not reach full RPM.
Yeah.
So you're right, it may not go to low pitch, but you have to think about what's the symptom. It's really hard to get that little protractor on when the prop's moving. So just gonna sit on the hub. Well, you got to get a buddy though that's your same size on the other side of the hub. You're out of balance.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that way you can check both sides at the same time. So yeah.
Teamwork.
I'd puke. All right, we did that. We did that.
We're doing that.
We're doing this. So Hartzell steel hub, full feathering, Hartzell compact feathering, air counterweights oil, and Hartzell compact feathering, air oil. So counterweighted. Hartzell compact feathering, air oil has no counterweights, apparently. But what does it use instead?
Air.
And?
Oil.
Ah, very good. All right, so moves prop to low pitch. Oil pressure. Those are all twins. Moves prop to high pitch, counterweight spring, air pressure and counterweights, air pressure and spring pressure. And of course, we've covered that. Which brings me to
The fun one.
hydromatic air screw. Still higher performance for the Royal Air Force. Didn't we beat those guys in World War II?